everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Amy Galper, and in this video I am going to show you how to make your own herbal infused oil to use in your botanical body care products. It's a really simple procedure, and all it requires are a few materials and a few ingredients. Herbal infused oils are one of the most amazing ingredients to use in your body care, whether you are making it yourself as a DIYer for your friends, for your family, and for your own self-care, or if you are deciding and considering making your own body care brand using all plant-based ingredients. So if this is the first time coming to my channel, welcome. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and ring that bell so you can be notified every time I come out with a new video. So let's get into it. Herbal oils. What are they? So an herbal infused oil is basically an oil, right, that has plant material that has been soaking in it for a certain period of time. There are basically two processes where you can make an herbal oil. You can do it like this, where you have the plant material, you put it in a mason jar, you cover it with oil, and you let it sit anywhere between 6 and 8 weeks in a dark, cool area in your home or your workshop. And then you're going to decant the oil, and all of that oil is going to be supercharged with all of the medicinal and therapeutic components of that plant material. Another method to do it is by using a slow heating process. And you could do that in a slow cooker or a crock pot. But in this video, I'm going to show you this simple, more cold process of infusing your plant material. Here are the steps and the tools that you're going to need in order to make an herbal infused oil. The first thing that you're going to need to do is to completely sterilize your space. So before I started filming, I made sure that I cleaned off my stainless steel table here with alcohol, and I also made sure that my jars and all of the equipment that I'm using went through the sterilization process in my dishwasher, and that everything is clean. So that was number one. The next thing that I'm going to need before I get started is I'm going to wear actually some gloves, because my hands are going to be really involved in this process, and I just want to make sure that I'm keeping any germs that might be transmitted through my hands away from my herbal oil. And the next thing that you're going to need is some equipment that you're going to need to actually make the herbal oil. The first thing that I would really encourage you in investing in, or maybe you have some of these around the house, are just basically glass mason jars. This is the largest size. I think it's 64 ounces, and it has one of these lids that you can seal, right? It comes off like this, and then there's that inner piece, which is really nice because that kind of, as you can see as I'm pulling it off, it helps vacuum seal with this rubber band, keeping any air out. So you definitely want that kind of mason jar. I would definitely recommend that. The next thing that you're going to need is a large glass Pyrex pitcher, which is where we're going to be pouring in some of our infused oil when we need to either make our jar of infused oil or after we decant it. The next thing that you're going to need is, I always have handy a large stainless steel bowl with a handle. I find that that works really well when I'm pouring the infused oil into different containers. And then of course you're going to need a bottle to put the decanted herbal oil in. And then finally, you are going to need some cheesecloth in order to strain your material out of the oil. And you're going to need some kind of herbal press. You could also use, as an alternative, a potato masher. And you could also just use your hands. And I'll show you exactly how that works when we get into decanting the herbal oil. And then, of course, you are going to need some olive oil or sunflower oil. And the reason why I choose sunflower oil or olive oil is because they are the most stable, meaning that as they sit in the jar with my plant material, they're not going to rapidly oxidize or cause any issues with my plant material. So those are two of the recommended carrier oils that you need when you're making an herbal oil: olive oil or sunflower oil. And then of course, you're going to need some plant material, dried plant material. Right here, I have had soaking some calendula flowers, and calendula is an amazing plant that has all of these beautiful wound healing, anti-inflammatory, tissue reparative properties, which is really good for skincare if we're making our own body care products. And here, I have some dried plant material, and this is some comfrey leaf, dried comfrey leaf. And comfrey has therapeutic properties of being really soothing and anti-inflammatory, specifically to our muscles. So this would be a great herbal oil if we're looking to do a massage oil, or we have any kind of injuries to our muscle tissue or even our skin. It's really highly anti-inflammatory and also tissue reparative. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to show you is actually how to infuse your plant material first. So what you're going to need, as I mentioned, is you're going to need an empty mason jar that has been fully sterilized and cleaned. And we're going to open that up right now. And then I have here my comfrey leaf. And I will put links in the description of everything that I'm using and a couple of ideas for plant material if you are interested in diffusing different kinds of dried herbs. So I am now opening up my comfrey leaf, and I am going to pour it right into my jar. So now that we have our jar filled with our dried plant material, I want you to take note that I have it about, I don't know, a third filled. I generally don't go above a half filled with plant material. Now, there's a couple of other things that you could decide to do. You could keep the leaves in this kind of macerated, chopped up kind of condition, or you could even put them into a Vitamix or a blender or a spice grinder and make them into powder. And the reason is you are exposing more of the plant material to the oil and giving the oil more of an opportunity to pull out the different phytochemicals and the medicinal properties. But I find that, you know, chopped up macerated leaves and flowers actually works just as well. So as you see, I have my comfrey leaf in my mason jar, and now it's time to pour in my olive oil. Okay, so I'm using here a virgin olive oil, and it's cold expeller pressed. As I said, this is a really stable oil and really the preferred oil of choice when you're making an infused oil. So let's pour it in. So as you can see here, I filled up the oil almost all the way to the top. There's about a 1/4 inch of space. And some of the air bubbles are coming up, so I'm just gonna let it settle for a minute. Making sure that the oil is really settling in there. And now I'm going to put the lid on. I'm gonna really pack that lid on there so it seals well. And then I'm gonna screw the cap on. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to gently shake it like this, just to make sure that all that plant material is getting completely covered and soaked by my olive oil. So I'm going to do that now. Just gently shake it, turn it upside down, move it around. And I can see here now that my comfrey is completely covered. Now, the next most important thing that you need to do is you need to put a label on your jar. I highly recommend that you put the date of when you are infusing, the name of the herb that you're infusing, and the type of oil that you're infusing it in. So for me, I am infusing comfrey leaf. It is infused in olive oil. And I'm gonna put the date, and then I'm gonna just put it up on my shelf. And I'm gonna leave it there for between 6 and 8 weeks. And then after then, it's going to be time to decant. So this is when we get to decant. So here we have my calendula oil, and I am about to decant it. It was sitting on my shelf for about 8 weeks, and now I'm ready to squeeze out the calendula flowers and have my supercharged olive oil that's going to be really amazing to use in my botanical body care recipes. So let me show you the steps of how I decant. So the first thing that you're going to need is some kind of herbal press. And what an herbal press does is it literally presses the herb out of the infused oil or alcohol, whatever you're soaking it in, so you can kind of strain out the plant material and have remaining the supercharged medicinal properties of your oil, right? We'll have all the infused components from the calendula or whatever plant you're using in the oil, and then you can use that oil in your recipes. So calendula, as I mentioned before, is really great, to heal wounds, as an anti-inflammatory, for evening out skin discoloration and just softening and caring for the skin. So as I mentioned, this herbal press I got on Etsy, and it has a couple of different pieces, and I'm sure you could probably try to figure out how you could make this at home. But the pieces are, you need like some part that's gonna vice, squeeze it down like a vice. And then you're gonna need a container where you're going to pour in your oil with the plant material in it. So that's what we're going to do next. But what I have found that I like to use as an extra layer of straining is cheesecloth. I recommend using cheesecloth that is naturally bleached and from natural 100% cotton, because I find that the general cheesecloth that you find at the grocery store that's really white is usually bleached cotton. I worry that there's residues from other kind of chemicals or things that aren't natural, and I want to make sure that everything that I'm using, everything that is touching the plant material that I'm working with is completely clean. So here is my cheesecloth, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to unfold it, and I'm going to basically fold it in a shape that will fit into my little container here. So I have my cheesecloth, and here it is. I'm opening up the whole thing here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically fold this in half like this, and then I'm going to drape it into my the container here. So I have like an even amount on either side, so I just need to adjust this to get it even on both sides. Perfect. Okay, so now what you see here is I have my cheesecloth lining this main container. So that's done. The next step is it's time to pour out my calendula and the oil that's been infusing for a couple of months. So here is what it looks like. You can see the calendula flower nicely, floating in there, and it's been soaking in this olive oil for a while. So now what I'm going to do is, and this is where an apron comes in handy and your gloved hands, is I'm going to pour this into the container, and I'm going to gently guide with my fingers the flowers out. Okay, so here we go. So as you see here, I'm pouring out the oil and gently guiding out the calendula flower. And now what we're going to do is we're going to set up my cheesecloth for being able to squeeze out the oil from all this plant material. So usually what I do is I kind of just fold this in half like this. And then I am going to put this piece on top because this is actually the piece that's going to press the oil. So now I'm going to add the next piece. There's a little divot inside that plastic piece. And I am going to first make this a little shallower. Screw this down. Great. So now I have slid this on top here. And then I have these little washers here where I'm going to put the screws. Okay? So now you've put the washers on, and now we're going to put the screws on to get a really tight grip. But the most important thing is I need to make sure that everything is centered. So it's not tilted up. I don't want it to tilt up. I want it to be as parallel as possible. So, great. Excellent. So now I'm going to put the washers on again. Now that that's all even, I'm going to put the screws, tighten the screws here. Tighten this screw. And get this all tight here. So now you can see that the screws are tight and the disc inside is even, is parallel. Just going to double check that that's totally even in there. Perfect. And now comes the fun part of squeezing the oil. So I'm going to use this and I'm just going to start squeezing down. And this makes pressing the oil much easier than just using your hands. But I'll show you how I used to do it by hand for many, many years before I even got this herbal press. So now I am just squeezing this down. And it's getting harder and harder. And I'm squeezing and squeezing. Okay, and what's happening now is the herbal oil, the herbs are being pressed and the oil is squeezing out of the flowers. And I'm going to do this until I can barely squeeze it anymore, okay? And at this point is when I usually pour the oil into my Pyrex, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pour this oil directly into my Pyrex. Beautiful herbal infused calendula oil. Right now I have about 16 ounces, and I'm going to now bottle it in an amber glass jar, which I strongly recommend that you do it in a dark glass so you can ensure the longevity of the herbal infused oil. So here we go. So now I have my 16 ounces of my calendula infused olive oil. Again, I'm going to put a label here, putting the dates of when it was decanted, and then I'll put it on my shelf and I will use it in all of my different botanical body care recipes. I've put some links below of some ideas for recipes if you're interested, so you can understand kind of the best ways to use calendula infused olive oil. Now, The next thing that I wanted to show you is if you don't have an herbal press, how do you squeeze out the oil? So let me show you another option if you don't have this herbal press. I'm just going to go ahead and unscrew this right now and kind of dismantle this press and show you the cheesecloth and show you another option. Now, if you have a potato press, usually what I do, a potato ricer, excuse me, what I'll do is I'll line it with the cheesecloth to try to make sure I don't get any particulate matter from the plants into my oil. So that's kind of why I do kind of like a double duty of lining it with the cheesecloth and having the herbal press. So again, you'll see that I would probably need to do another squeeze out of this to get it, but I wanted to show you something. So what we have here is, I'm taking out the cheesecloth now, okay, and I'm just going to put that piece. So this was the disc, everybody, that was on top that was actually pressing down the oil. So what we have here now is we have the cheesecloth that is filled with the calendula. You see this here? So we have our cheesecloth that's filled with our calendula. So another way, and this is what I did for years before I got this herbal press, is another way is actually just squeezing it like this. Just using your muscles and your grip to squeeze the oil directly out of the cheesecloth like this. Okay, and you could, this is another great option. So whether your plant has been in a crock pot or it's been in a jar for 6 to 8 weeks, whatever, all you need to do is just squeeze the cheesecloth to get out the oil from the plant material. All right, so that is another option if you don't have an herbal press. All right, so there you go. This is how to actually infuse dry plant material and how to decant plant material. In this video, we went through exactly the steps that you need, all of the equipment that you need, all of the materials that you need, etc. So please go ahead, share with me in the comments below what you found most valuable. Let me know if you have any questions, if anything seemed confusing or you had specific questions about other plant material, and make sure that you like and you comment and you share. And don't forget to subscribe if you like this video and you want to hear about more videos about essential oils, aromatherapy, aromatherapy education, aromatherapy entrepreneurship, and botanical beauty formulation. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video.